Welcome to David's Life and Observation with your host, David Welch. Today's show is going to be about a couple of issues that have been coming up. We seem to have an epidemic of law enforcement officers sneaking around people's houses and shooting them through windows. Dallas-Fort Worth is not the only incident. 2 days prior in Aurora, Colorado, there was another incident where a gentleman was observing figures outside his door. He went to grab a firearm like most people would. He turned his back to the window to dial 911 and was shot in the ass. And then he's charged with a crime. It is absolutely mind-blowing how law enforcement will keep victimizing a victim and then name them the criminal when they've done criminal acts. But it's kind of par for the course. No accountability, throwing accountability on their victims. I mean, it's just a pattern tried and tested. We have a PBSO officer in Florida, Palm Beach officer, that drew a firearm on men in a parking lot. Told them that if he sees them downtown, he implied a threat. He implied that he was going to do harm with his gun and his badge. That officer was charged with 4 felony counts. The officer in the Dallas incident is being charged, and unfortunately, the Aurora, Colorado police are charging the victim. But they will do. Most law enforcement agencies will do everything they can to throw shade, serious shade, on the victim. It is just a mentality of the police, especially if they have no video of the incident. If you, as Joe Citizen, don't have video of the incident to contradict their story, you're in trouble. So I recommend to all my subscribers, anybody who ever catches this video, to install cameras in your home, have a dash camera, and have cameras ready to go when you have any interaction with a government agency, whether it's CPS, whether it's the local police, sheriff's department, whether it's your local city council members. I don't care who it is, record. I don't care if you're going into the DMV, the post office, city hall. Anytime you have interactions with public officials in the capacity of their duties, you should be recording, and that you should be allowed to record. You have a lot of public officials that constantly tell people, "Oh, well, you're not allowed to record in here," because they don't want their crimes documented. They don't want their false information documented. They don't want accountability, and they frankly don't want to be scrutinized by the American tax people, or the American taxpayers that pay their salaries. They want to justify and have this aloof, undue respect given to them, and it's just amazing that we still have, in this day and age, public officials who believe that they are above the law. We have public officials that believe that they are above reproach, and they've had a long time to build up this belief because they've set policies, they've set things in place to where they're not going to be held accountable. Um, we have a pattern in this country of allowing police officers to get away with numerous crimes until and unless they are caught on video by the citizen. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind that even if you are a back the blue lives matter person, whatever have you, which, like, everybody can have a difference of opinion, and I respect that. If you're all for law enforcement, if you're all for police, and you want them to do the right thing, and you believe that they do the right thing, arm yourself too. Like, there are people that are diehard back the blue people that end up getting serious amounts of trouble because they themselves thought it was, like, okay, well, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm going to let them search my vehicle. Cop ends up planning something, and they don't have a record of it. So they eat those charges, and then they're bewildered and angry. And I spoke to several people that were diehard, back the blue people, and then they end up being charged with a crime, or something ends up happening that they believe was unfair treatment by the police, or they know it to be false charges, but they still have those charges and they have no ability to fight the case, or they don't know enough to fight the case, then they end up getting in serious trouble, and then they're disenfranchised or disillusioned about the people that are there to protect them. And it happens all the time. People that I've known personally for years that are hardcore, like, Blue Lives Matter. They have the blue line sticker. They have all these things. They have one interaction that goes south, and then they're like, "Holy shit, Dave, you were right." And even then, not so much. I mean, they're like, "Well, maybe I should have just, I hear that all the time." Like, no, if you've been victimized by the police, it doesn't matter if you support their brethren. The system failed you. The system fell through, and you were charged with a crime that you shouldn't have been charged with, and even possibly convicted of a crime that you shouldn't have been convicted with. And I don't believe. Here's what I don't believe, and here's what is hogwash. Employers nowadays won't give a chance to hardly anybody with a record. They don't. Unless it's like construction or laborious, and even then, like, it's low paying jobs that will give felons a chance, and they're trying to rebuild their lives. Some felons, I know a lot of felons that have critical skills, but they won't be hired by a company because of their record. And companies are missing out on those skill sets because they've adopted a policy to not give those felons a chance. And it's unfortunate. There's a lot of people who after one incident or one interaction with law enforcement lose a family member, or they or their entire world comes crashing down because they live paycheck to paycheck, and they can't battle the court costs, they can't battle the court fees, even if they were wrongfully accused or wrongfully charged or whatever have you. There are people right now in Texas languishing in the CPS system, the family court system, that have no mechanism of recourse. Their lawyers really don't give a shit because they don't really work for you. They're public defenders or public lawyers who, you know, really can't or really don't want to defend you because they are milking the system. They're bilking it for everything they get, because as many court appearances as they can get you in, as many times as they can meet with you, they're getting paid for it. So they document those hours, and it's just a paycheck. They're like, no, I need to meet with you, once a month, or once every couple of weeks, so I can charge the state and invoice the state so I can get my money. Or, hey, I know you didn't do anything wrong, but let's see how this plays out. Well, I know you have evidence and I know you have a camera, but we're not gonna file that as evidence because the judge won't listen anyway. I literally had that shit said to me, like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, if it's a false arrest or if it's a false detention that led to your kids being taken away, absolutely. Or if you have video of CPS, doing something like lying to law enforcement to get your kids taken away, absolutely bring that to the judge's attention. But the judge is not there for you either. Honestly, the problem with the family court system, at least when it comes to CPS cases, is it's not in front of a jury. They don't go through the same procedures as a regular court of law, because the judge in her or his fiefdom holds supreme power over the courtroom. And it's like a well devised, orchestrated thing, because a lot of the times the judges and the lawyers work in tandem to get things taken care of with as minimal contact with the parents as possible. If the lawyer says, hey, you know what, like, we're gonna get all this agreement and shit before we even see the judge, that way the judge can just make this decision, whatever it may be. They literally have a set orchestrated plan in place where the judge calls up several cases at once, and then the lawyers all stand in line. Oh, this is what we agreed upon. Judge rules it, then they're done for the day. and everybody gets paid and not screwed over except for the parents, which happens a lot. So it's a system in play that is corrupt. There's a system in play that has no accountability, and that's definitely family law. But let's go back to the epidemic of police shooting people through windows. I'm sure there are a lot of cases. I'm sure there has to be a lot of cases where this is true. Law enforcement has done this, and because the officer didn't wear body camera and the citizen didn't record or didn't have a mechanism of getting the video, that they're simply just asked out, and whatever happened happened, and then there's no recourse for the family to get any justice, because the cop who survived can put anything in their report, and it's gospel because the courts will just say, "Oh well, he knocked on the door. The guy, had a gun, so I killed him," even though that is probably 99% of the time not what the fuck happened. We have law enforcement in this country that repeatedly lies on their reports, and then you never hear in the news. Here's what you don't hear in the news. Oh well, he's catching that perjury charge. Because it doesn't exist for law enforcement officers apparently. Why is there not perjury severely pursued by law enforcement? Because it's not in the interest of the court. It's not in the interest of the city, because they lose money when officers lie. They lose money when officers do what they did in Fort Worth, and they're all like, "Oh well, he left the department that way he doesn't have being fired on his record." But it's like, come on, he should have been fired within minutes of the incident. He should have been arrested and put in handcuffs and taken to jail himself. But you don't hear that happening. You don't hear it enough. You hear a guy being allowed to go get his affairs in order with his family, whereas any other person in that situation who doesn't wear a badge is screwed from the get. I mean, right then and there. They do not pass go, do not collect $100 or $200. They're put in handcuffs immediately, and then they're left languishing in jail until they bond, if they're allowed to bond, and have a lawyer ready to defend them. Police have the luxury of going home for sometimes 90 days or even longer. They're allowed to be on the job, doing the job, until finally they're hit with a lawsuit, and then sometimes it's a year and a half, 2 years later, because people don't have the means, or they're white. And I hate to say this, but the civil rights lawyers in this country, if you're white and you have your civil rights violated, it's almost like a fucking pass. Like, the lawyers are like, "And did you get beat?" Or, "And like did you die?" But if it's a person of color, and we've seen this repeatedly, a person of color gets their civil rights violated, lawyers come out of the woodwork, and you have pastors and all these other people speaking on behalf of them. Now, I'm not saying that that's wrong. That is absolutely needed, absolutely right that they get defended in court. But we are seeing a racist bias when it comes to civil rights violations in this country, because there's this almost accepted harm to white people, and it's not. It's several observations that made me come to that decision, and it's not just me blowing smoke. It's true. I had my civil rights violated. I looked for lawyers for weeks, months. Texas Civil Rights Union, they're like, "Well, we can't help you because we're dealing with civil rights violations on the border," or something else happens in Texas, like the Dallas Fort Worth shooting, and then you have suddenly a civil rights lawyer that can handle it, but I'm screwed. Anyways, my recommendation for everyone: record the police, install systems, defend yourselves with video. Don't let if you have to, conceal those cameras, because law enforcement will find those cameras, and they will fucking take the footage, delete the footage, and harm it. If you have a mechanism where it's on the cloud, or you can get it through an external means, by means, do it. By all means, always have a dash camera ready to go. That way, when you get pulled over for bullshit, you can call the officer on their bullshit. Because what they're going to do is they're going to search for other things to say they pulled you over for. Well, not just you were speeding, which you weren't. We're going to say you have window tint problems, which you don't. And then we're going to say, oh, well, you have a signal out, which you won't. Or, hey, your license plate light's not bright enough, which it is. So either way, they're going to try and find ways to extort you. They're going to try and find ways to get in your vehicle so they can do an illegal search. And there's going to be no, if or little, accountability for officers that commit crimes. Again, thank you for tuning in to David's Life and Observation. I love you all. Please like, subscribe, and comment on this video. And just, be leery of law enforcement. Have a great day.